Welcome back to PlatteForum's podcast. I am your host, Esther H.Z. I had the pleasure of doing a studio visit and a brief interview with PlatteForum's current resident artist, Jennifer Maravillas. She's a visual artist and an illustrator whose studio practice focuses on land and how our relationship to land shapes us as individuals and communities. Jennifer moved from Brooklyn to Denver in 2021 and has been exploring Denver through her current map-making project with Artlab, where she merges cartography and art making. Today you will hear a little bit about her creative process. Also, you will be hearing from some of Artlab's interns who will share about places that have special significance for them historically, culturally, and personally. These are places that interns have been reflecting upon within their work with Jennifer. Also, Jennifer has an upcoming exhibition opening at the end of her residency titled Collected Perspectives, Cartography, Belonging, Place, and Identity. This exhibition opens Friday, November 4th at 6 p.m. in PlatteForum's Annex Gallery in the Taxi Building at 3575 Ringsby Court, number 103 in Denver.
I guess like a lot of artists, I never really stopped drawing and painting after, becoming an adult. And for a while I was working in graphic design and advertising, and now I still work in illustration. So it's sort of just been a gradual...
That's okay.
A gradual addition to my practice working in fine art. And I think it really came about when I found cartography, and it was just an intersection of wanting to engage in the cities that I was living. I was moving around a lot at the time. And it was a good way for me to get out and see the city and have a reason to see the world and not just be at home coloring in my notebook or on a piece of paper.
Well, yeah, because like your work, you're kind of merging like creative practice with cartography. And I'm wondering if you always did that from the beginning, or like how that kind of came about and where the inspiration came from.
It started when I was living in San Francisco. And it was one specific piece that I was working on an illustration of the city, and so that was actually a map. And it was an interesting time to be in San Francisco because it was kind of before like Twitter and this, second or third tech boom. So it was sort of a nice time. It was a little bit affordable, kind of affordable. Mm-hmm. And so I had time to, freelance and then take a month or so to work on art. And just being in a place that had, creativity and tech, I kind of got a little bit into the tech world and just learning and going to conferences and talks. And so just like delving into a little bit of technical, like at least learning about GIS and understanding those types of technologies kind of informed that. And I don't really work in that technical sense any at all, really very much anymore, just a little bit. But I think kind of merging those two. And the field since then I've learned about the field of cartography, and it's actually really, throughout history, mostly been artists just working with maps and making their own maps on pieces of paper or parchment. And there's a field alongside that, which is how we get around GIS and all of that. But yeah, cartography is it's not considered a field of art, but I guess it technically is.
Yeah.
In fine arts, it's not as if,
Right,
it's not painting, it's not
medium.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
A medium, but it is in fact its own artistic mm-hmm. genre. And it's really open. People love talking about maps with each other and in that world. And I think most people enjoy maps, and from what I've heard, so it's been...
Your maps are really interesting, though, because I've seen a variety of different things that projects that you've done in relation to map making and cartography, and it's been all over the place, like from what you're doing now, which look like cement castings with objects in them, objects that it seems like you've found in those areas of that are relating to the map, and then all the way to like furniture. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about like maybe how you decide what kind of map you're going to make or what medium you're going to go to, or
Right.
because it seems like you've done so many different kinds.
Yeah, I think above everything else, I'm interested in experimenting with media, and I think it depends on the place. After the San Francisco map, I decided I wanted to specifically map different cities and places and create portraits of those places. And I wanted to focus on each place having its own type of media that tells a story about that place.
Okay.
And so the next place I wanted to live was in Brooklyn. And so garbage was a natural progression. And that sort of led me down the road of collecting media or items. So when I got this residency, I decided, maybe not just garbage. I mean, not paper garbage, but any type of like physical medium would be really interesting. And creating a mosaic or kind of a tile map of Denver and cement makes sense because, I guess all cities have a car-centric or cement focus, but it's coming from New York to Denver. It's definitely more car-centric to me. Like you generally need to have a car, or I don't know. The dynamics of car pedestrian are interesting to me here.
Yeah, I mean it's technically the concrete jungle, or I don't know technically, but metaphorically.
Yeah,
I really like that you used cement to kind of like play on that.
Yeah,
that idea. The previous resident artist talked a little bit about the Anthropocene, and this is something that's just coming to mind.
Yeah.
But she talked about the layer just of the Anthropocene just being basically just a big cement chunk with like all this trash in it, which I think is really interesting to think about. And so when people, okay, so this is what you're currently working on now, is the cement map, which I have gotten a sneak peek of, and I think it's really beautiful, and I'm really excited to see like how it looks when it's all like complete and in place. But can you talk a little bit more about like that process and like what went into it? Because I know you were picking up objects and like traveling around the space where the studio is.
Sure. Yeah. So the gallery space is in this area called the taxi community. And I focused on this area because the residency is 2 months, which is really not very long when you're undertaking a long-term project. And so I created it in the shape of the stage here in the gallery, just to have a place to put it and display the work. And so, yeah, I broke up this area of the city of Denver into, I think it was 22 different sections, and just biked around or walked around and collected little bits of anything I could find that was interesting. It's sort of changed over time. I originally thought I would place the object on the cement and then remove it and have just the impression. But technically it worked out better to have it actually within the cement. We'll see. I might take some of them out. But so yeah, I was collecting. It was actually a lot of bits of car accidents were my favorite things because they're just these little, it's a little bit morbid, but it's like little really interesting geometric patterns and the lights that are between the pieces of plastic, like the red and the white of the blinkers or the fog lights or whatever, and little bits of electronics or wires. I was really into the wires that you twist around the fence and construction zones. There are something like 20 construction zones in this area, so I saw a lot of, I think I became friends with the construction workers, which is nice. And yeah, just little bits of discarded pieces of life all around, and wherever, generally in the area, it was kind of hard with physical objects to archive them. Collected them on pieces of paper, and then within that area, just placed them into the map. And then I created forms of each block and those sections, and sprayed it with cooking spray. And the only cooking spray I've been able to get in the area at Natural Grocers, the like fancy olive oil spray, which is so funny. So the studio smells like olive oil, I'm sure. And then
I hadn't even noticed.
do you smell it? Okay.
No, I don't smell it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty done. It smells pretty strong after spraying months.
Hey, there's definitely worse studio smells.
Okay.
than olive oil.
And then, yeah, I mix the concrete and pour it over there and hope whatever I placed there wasn't lost in the liquid. And sometimes they are, but maybe once the cement breaks down with Raquel's Anthropocene strata, the plastic will reveal itself.
Yeah, it's cool. It's first of all, it's really beautiful to look at, but then I feel like there's all these little bits and pieces of moments, like you said, car accidents and construction and things that are happening in that space.
Yeah,
it's almost like like you said earlier, portrait of a place.
Yeah,
as it is now.
Little artifacts of people's lives and just telling the story of this area, which is really interesting. If you go to the west, it's the ballpark. The map kind of covers from the ballpark over to the Coliseum, Denver Coliseum, and then up into Globeville and down into Rhino, so kind of more bougie restaurants and stuff. So it covers some disparate cultures, and it was interesting to see all of those.
So it sounds like you've also done this process, like possibly in Brooklyn and San Francisco too?
I didn't walk in San Francisco. Okay. I walked, but I didn't collect anything then.
Okay. Is there anything that you kind of learned that you didn't expect to learn about the area, or through the process of like investigating the way the city was laid out, or anything like that you didn't expect to learn?
I went into it sort of blind. I've just gotten to Denver, so I don't know anything about it. I know this area only by getting to the interstate. So I don't, I went into it without knowing anything other than the taxi building. So it was all new. It was all discovery, 100%.
Okay, cool. That's great. That's like such a great way to experience a city that you've just moved to.
Yeah. Yeah. I think by foot and by bike, and also just having a task that isn't hurried, just being out there to collect or look and see, I think is the idea behind the maps that I make collecting items.
Nice. Do you have anything? So what are your plans after the exhibition opening at PlatteForum? Or do you have any projects coming up?
This has been my big project. I'm in the middle of moving also. Okay. But that's before the exhibition also.
That's a big project.
So I'm going to unpack a bunch of boxes probably. But since I've gotten to this region of the country, I've really gotten into geology. So I'll probably continue along those lines. I haven't exactly figured out what I'm doing with that. But I like the idea of, going on a hike and coming up with a project alongside that, or having a reason to visit a mountain and understand. It's a little different because it's not collecting bits of garbage, but it's, there's map making potential there that I haven't realized yet. So I think probably writing and figuring that out is what I want to do.
Nice. It's so beautiful up in the mountains here. It's one of my favorite things to do. So I could see how that could be like a really rejuvenating project.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you almost have to living here. You just look at them all the time would be a little bit sad.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, need some air.
So you've been working with several Artlab interns, or a group of Artlab interns. So I kind of realized this exhibition, and I want to give the listeners a little context for what they're about to hear, because we are going to be playing some snippets of interns replying to a prompt that you've given them. So I was wondering if you could just chat a little bit about that part of the project.
Sure. So when I got this residency, I thought it was a perfect opportunity to extend the overall idea of what I want to do with my artistic and cartographic process, which is sharing people's voices and creating maps that tell stories about people in different media in different ways. And working with interns to tell their stories is the idea behind the series of maps that we'll create for the show. So the audio map is one of those, and our prompt for that is to tell a story of a place that explains their identity or gives context to who they believe they are, basically. So it could be anywhere in the world. It doesn't have to be in Denver. I guess it could be in, the greater universe as well.
Yeah.
Just a story about their identity and set in a context, in a place.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear those.
Yeah. I think if I was going to answer that question or answer that prompt, it would be hard. I think it would be hard because there's like several places.
Yeah, you could talk about several.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I think if I was going to think about like in a childhood context or like my younger years, I would pick San Antonio, which is where my family is from and where they live. And there's just like so much. It's just like so culturally rich, you know, down there with like the food and the music and the Spanish speaking, and just all my relatives spoke Spanish. And I guess if I was going to like think of what that audio map would sound like, it would probably be my grandmother having coffee with her sister in the living room, and they just are like speaking so fast, and I wouldn't have no idea what they were talking about as a kid. But there was something really comforting about that sound.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Oh, that's lovely.
I don't know if that pertains, but
I think so.
For me, it does have that sense of like belonging, place, identity, and yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. I have a similar. On holidays, when I was growing up, my favorite thing was to wake up in the morning and hear people starting to cook for some reason. And sometimes I still have that if my husband's doing something in the kitchen. And I've just woken up, especially if it smells like cinnamon rolls. It is a very comforting feeling. Like this is just a day of celebration. Yeah, I'm not even a big holiday person. It's just it's a satisfying sound.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining me and talking about your practice.
Thank you.
So next we're going to hear from some of the Artlab interns, and they're going to share a little bit about what their audio map prompt is.
Yeah.
Cool.
Excellent.
A place that has impacted my current identity, I would say, is my first childhood home, mainly since it had a big backyard and I felt free to explore my environment and the nature within my surroundings. So I used to play a lot with leaves and twines and twigs, and I would braid them into plant crowns, and then that's how I started getting into crafts. And I used to squish leaves and flowers and try to make my own pigments. It didn't work, but it's how I started really embracing my creativity and how I could use what I have to make the most out of my creative expression. And I think that really motivated me to start pursuing that from an early age.
Well, a place that I believe has affected like who I am is my neighborhood, because in my neighborhood, sometimes it can be like a place full of memories, of like happy memories, but then also it reminds me that sometimes there can be like um, like bad memories and like bad moments in life. And the reason is because I have a school in my neighborhood, and that school is filled with like great memories that I had with my friends and stuff. But now that I've grown up, now I'm aware like of the stuff that happens around my neighborhood. And the stuff that happens is like every weekend there's shootings or stuff like that. And I'm able to see what the reality is. But I'm also able to be grateful that I had such a great childhood in my neighborhood. I like the moments where I used to go with my brothers or with my family and go on a ride bike to the park. And we did that during the summer, and I really liked doing that because it was like a time where I felt safe and in union with my brothers and my sisters.
I'd say the place that just made me who I am, helped like build me as a person is my home, because it's the people in it, like your family. They're the people that truly made you who you are. They're always raising you. You get most traits from your parents than anyone else, or that's what goes for me. And my brother is the one that was in the Artlab. He was an intern here years ago. And I remember I was raised around the scene. So I'd say family is mostly what makes you who you are, and what you pick up a lot of things and a lot of habits from them. It was the scene, just like the atmosphere. I remember like I would come to the galleries with them, and I'd see like a lot of weird pieces and just a lot of things that people don't usually see and that there should be more of. And I'd say that's what makes art great. Just a lot of things you're not used to, like a lot of people expressing themselves and just a lot of stories that come with it. So family and just the art scene is what made me who I am. My brother won I don't know how to word, like the best 2D art piece in all of DPS 2014. And man, it was weird. It's like a fever dream walking around in a gallery, like how I remember it. Maybe it was just because I was a kid, but I don't know how to describe it.
Is your brother does he still do art?
He's thinking of getting back into it. He hasn't been able to. Since I've been doing it, he's been doing it. Like he started carpentry, nice. And we help each other.
I've been walking home from school since 7th grade. The first time I did it, my phone was dead and I didn't really know where I was going. I borrowed a classmate's phone to call my mom, and she just said, just walk home. I decided to just try following the route my dad uses and eventually stopped crying once I got to Yale. My route has changed a few times over the years until I eventually found the shortest route. Walked down Raleigh until I reached Bates, walked down Bates until I reached Depew, then walk a few houses down and enter my house all sweaty and tired. My walk is downhill, but no matter the time of day, the sun is always directly on me. I don't walk home much anymore. I have college classes, and on Wednesdays and Fridays, I'm helping my mom coach kids on Shakespeare. I do miss walking home. It's especially nice in the fall when it's warm out and the trees are beautiful shades of yellow and red. really, like, it's just been something I've been doing for years. And, you know, I get a lot of ideas when I'm walking home for stories and stuff. And it's, you know, walking just outside in general is very good for you. And, you know, after I started doing that less, I kind of just felt a little weird. I guess just because walking home was kind of like, became a part of who I was.
My map is basically about where I'm from, or at least like my descendants. It's basically about Osaka, Japan. My grandparents were from there, and so I have like a strong connection to Japan. And that's basically what this project is representing. It's just representing my culture and something that really, really stands out about me. My grandparents had their family and like cultures over there, and they had to go and leave that to come over here during war and things like that. So what connects me to over there is basically what we could have been doing over there, like the celebrations, if we had like a family business, if we had traditions that no other like person had right there. I guess that's what connects to me, finding out what that is. I have basically started learning more Japanese. I've been also trying to go to Japan and like discover where exactly they were like in their childhood. I have also like tried to keep the cuisine intact. I really, really love Japanese food and it's really delicious, so I try to keep that. Try to get my cousins, my siblings to have that experience.
House wa doko desu ka? If you want to know where a place or object is, you simply put wa doko desu ka after its name.
すみません。東京スカイツリーはどこですか？あそこです。
After the name of the place, just add wa doko desu ka. Then people will probably know how to help you.
The place that shaped me as the person that I am today is the park next to my house. Even before I moved into the home that I'm living in right now, that park was a place that I frequent a lot in my younger years, because it is right next to the cemetery where most of my family and relatives are buried. So it's been a very important place for me to be at since I was very young till up right now, when I still visit it very frequently.
I'm an Artlab intern. My name is Jay, and I decided to make mobiles of the communities in Denver based off of if they're in a food desert or not, and how many people in those areas are in a food desert. And I decided to do that because my grandmother lives in a pretty extreme food desert. Like 94% of people are in a food desert, and she's in an electric wheelchair. And for things like, honestly, for her, like cigarettes or just like easy meals, it would be really nice for her to like go to the gas station that's near, but they also refuse to put ramps. So I just am very passionate about people actually having access to things that they need, because personally, like my family doesn't. And that's kind of why I decided to make these mobiles that are separated by how many people are in food deserts, because I find access to food is one of the most important things that people could have.
This place is actually pretty far.
It's like a 4-hour plane ride. But once I got there, I just knew that it was going to be important and going to stay in my memories for a long time. There are places like that for sure. The place is a temple. It's in Hawaii. In Hawaii, there's a lot of Japanese culture there, and you can really just feel the energy there. And I think that was like one of the first times I experienced that, which is why I really appreciate the place.
Thank you so much for listening, and don't forget to check out Jennifer's exhibition opening on Friday, November 4th at PlatteForum's Annex Gallery in the Texie Building. You can find out more about Jennifer and her work by clicking on the website link in the podcast description below. I also want to thank our generous donors and sponsors who make our creative programs possible. If you would like to make a donation to PlatteForum, visit the website at platteforum.org. That's platteforum.org.